Hello folks and welcome to a brand new Unity tutorial. In today's tutorial we're going to be extending our first person character controller by doing the camera script for our first person character. So what we're going to do straight away, we're going to jump into it. It's a very straightforward script to follow. There are some unusual terminology in the script to get your head around, but that's all part of learning. So let's get started. First of all, what we need to do is we need to actually, the main camera is at the moment away from the actual character. There it is over there. We need to attach the main camera to the actual player itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the main character and onto player, and then what it'll do, it'll become a child of the player component. But that's not all. As you can see, it's still not attached. So once we're on the main camera there, we need to go across and we need to click on these three little dots just here, click on reset, and that'll reset it to the actual position of the player, but it's now in the middle, so it's like a gut cam as opposed to a head cam really. So we need to drag this up there like that, perhaps there'll do, and that's where we're going to have the camera sitting. So it's pretty much sitting where his eyes would be. And what we will do, actually, talking of eyes, we will actually just add something to the capsule collider so we can see where the front of the player is and where the back is, so we know exactly what we're doing. So I'm going to right click on capsule and I'm going to create a cube, I think. Let's drag that up there a little bit and we're going to alter the size of it. Click on this little box just here, that one there, the scale tool, and you can manipulate it like this as much as you want. You can change it in the transform if you want to, but for the benefit of this, I'm just gonna, we just want a little bit like that, and then we're gonna click on the move tool again and we're just gonna drag it out here like that, moving up. Now if you see on the right hand side in the camera view, we can actually see that now. We don't really want to see that, so we'll move the camera forward in a second. Let's just push those back there a little bit. There we go. I'll tell you what we could do as well. If we go to materials, we'll create a new material. In fact, we'll just use the brown we've already got. And we'll create that there so we can see the front. So that's his eyes, if you like. And then what we will do is get the camera and just drag that out a bit there. So there we go. The camera's now, so if you drag it all the way back, you see what you'll see. You see the eyes and then you'll see the person. But if you go all the way in there and there like that, then that hides now the eyes, but we have the character camera exactly where we want it. Brilliant. Control S to save what we're doing, save as we go, and now what we can do is we're going to go into our scripts folder and we're going to create a new script. So right click, create C# script, I'm going to call it camera controller. Okay, and we're going to double click on that to open up Visual Studio. And this is where the fun begins. We're going to start typing in all the code to make the camera work once Visual Studio loads. There we go. Right, so I don't want to rate Visual Studio right now. I'm in the middle of something, thank you very much. So we'll keep the start and the update in there. So we need to, when the actual application loads, we want something to happen in the start method. And we also want an update method, which will be move camera. Okay, and the move camera method we will create down here. So it's going to be void move camera. Okay, so that doesn't need it does need a semicolon. Sorry, what am I doing? Having a moment there, sorry about that. Okay, so in the void update, all we're going to do in the void update is call the move camera method, which is going to go here. We've created that ready to put our code in a moment, but what we need to do first of all as well is to declare some variables. So we're going to have a public float, and we're going to have camera sensitivity. Okay. I don't know why I've chosen sensitivity, it's quite a difficult thing to spell. And we're going to go public float again, and we're going to have camera smoothing, and another public float, public float, we're going to have a public game object, sorry. And we're going to call that the player. And then we're going to have a public, oh dear, I can't spell again, vector2 smooth velocity, and public vector2 current looking position, pos. Okay. Then in our in our void start method, we are simply going to add a line of code here to collect, make sure the camera attaches itself. So we do the player equals transform dot parent dot game object. That's all we're going to put in there. In our updates method, we already have the move camera. In our move camera, this is the bit where we're going to put loads of bits of code in now, but it's only 10 lines or so, I think, if I remember rightly. So let's start off with vector2 input values equals new vector2 input dot get axis raw open bracket mouse x and then close bracket. After the first close bracket, do a comma. Oops, I've not done space on the new in vector2. And then, oh dear, input dot get axis raw mouse y open close brackets, two brackets there, and a semicolon. Okay, so that's just detecting the mouse X and the mouse Y, so we can move the mouse around. Obviously the mouse is going to move the camera, and that's all that's doing. It's detecting those things. It's taking the values of those movements. Input values equals vector2 dot scale open brackets input values comma new vector2 open bracket again. We want camera sensitivity times camera smoothing comma camera sensitivity times camera smoothing. Okay. Then what we're going to have is smooth velocity dot x, sorry, just thinking there for a second, equals math f dot dot lerp open, and we want smooth velocity dot x comma input values dot x comma 1f, f meaning float, divided by camera smoothing, and we'll close that there. And the next one is exactly the same, it's just for the Y. So if we just copy that line there, right click, copy, and then Control V to paste it, and all we're going to do is change out the X in this line for the Y. That's another Y as well. Whoops. Okay. So we want current looking position plus equals smooth velocity. Current looking position. Oh, there we go. There was a red line under it for a while, but it took a while to move, but it has gone, and it is right. So we'll have, oh dear, transform dot local rotation equals quaternion dot angle axis minus current looking position dot y comma, vector 3 dot right. The player dot transform dot local rotation equals quaternion dot angle axis current looking position dot x comma the player dot transform dot up. So that's when the player's moving up or down, or looking up and down rather. Okay, that line seems fine. When you type in lots of coding like this, you have to be careful because it is very easy to make a mistake, but the beauty of Visual Studio, it will come up with a red line underneath and tell you it's an error. So current looking position dot y equals mathf dot clamp current looking position dot y minus 90 comma 90. Right, and that last line is basically when we look up with the mouse, it will stop at 90 degrees up and it will stop at 90 degrees down. Otherwise what happens is we can spin our head 360 degrees up and round, which is only useful if you're flying a jet or something, or as a person we are not naturally sort of made to be able to spin our head 360 degrees. So that clamp puts that into position. Now if I go Control and S, and that's all we need to do with the code, we save that, go back to Unity. Hopefully there'll be no errors. Nope. We go to the player and we're going to fix that script onto the actual camera itself. So we can drag that across to the camera. Now hopefully when we press play this should work. And what we do is the player game object there, when we press play as well, it'll pick up the actual player, which is the parent of the camera. So let's press play and see what happens. Yep, there it is, it's setting the player there. What you can find though is that we can't actually move the mouse around. We move the player, but the mouse doesn't move, and it's probably because we've not set any figures in the actual smoothing or the sensitivity. There we go. Whoops, that's a bit quick actually, so let's just move the sensitivity down a little bit. And you can play around with those figures as much as you want. Let's just have that as a 3, let's have that as a 1.5. And the beauty of it is a float again, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, is a float that we can set it by point to something as well. Whereas if it's an integer, we have to have a whole number. So the beauty of a float, it gives you that bit more flexibility. Now the 90 degrees is quite high, but we can look straight up and straight down, and that might be set a bit high. So what we do, stop that, and we're going to go into the camera script again. And I don't like using numbers in the actual code either, so we're going to declare these clamp values up here. So we're going to basically put public, and these need to be integers really, it's probably better. Public int max clamp value, let's call it that. And then all we need to do is where we got the minus 90, we'll change that to minus max clamp value. And there we'll change that 90 for max clamp value there. So we got that line is now better. We've got code in there instead of actual numbers, which we can actually declare when we go back. So we press Control and S now to save that. Go back to Unity, and we should see a public integer which we can actually set the value ourselves. It should load up over here on the right hand side. There it is, max clamp value. So we'll change that to, if we change that to 90 now, you'll see when you press play. I've not checked. I've done it again. I've not set the settings there. So sensitivity 1.5, and let's do that to 4. Okay, so as you can see, the max clamp value is set to 90. It still works fine. If we change that in there now, we can change it at runtime to 70, and you can see you can't look all the way down, and you can't look. You can only look up and down like that, which I think in a game is absolutely fine. And if you move around like this, in fact, let's set it to maximum screen so you can see. When we press play, we can now move our character around In fact, we could do with an object on here just to see us moving around a bit, really, couldn't we? So let's do a cube. Let's make it a bit taller. And let's do the same over here. Let's do another cube over here. Where's the player? I've not put a cube on a player, have I? That'd be rather awkward. There we go. So if I press play now, you'll be able to see exactly what I mean. So we can move around. There's one object. There's two, and you can move around nicely. Sensitivity might be a little bit sensitive at the moment. We can alter that accordingly if we want to, though. That's not a problem. So there we go. That's how to create a camera for your first-person character controller. If you like that, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for more content, and thank you ever so much for watching. Bye for now.